Oh, yeah, and here we are, folks. It is another edition of the Spoiler Room. I realize I have not missed a week of doing these for almost 3 years now.
Nice.
I am insane like that. Insane. And yeah, I'm very excited. We are continuing our Night of the Night ofs month here in the spoiler room. And tonight we're talking about a film that, yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about. And I enjoy this film quite a bit, and not just because of who stars in it. Okay, I'm just putting that out there right now, but it does assist in my joy of this film. And we are talking Night of the Comet, from 19. This film was older than I thought it was. But it's from 1984. It was Night of the Comet, and yeah, and I've got a great crew joining me. Hopefully, Kara will be able to join us. She's running into a little bit of a technical issue, but hopefully she'll join us here soon. But back in the spoiler room, another OG spoiler room member is back with us once again. It is Mr. Ray. Hello, Ray. How are you, sir?
I am good, sir. How are you?
I am very good and excited to have you in the spoiler room. Always a pleasure to have some OG members. I raise a glass. Thank you, everyone, for coming down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and having your favorite beverage with us as we talk movie spoilers. And tonight, yes, it is the cult classic science fiction film that totally embodies the 80s, and it is Night of the Comet. And since you are here, Ray, why not give the synopsis of this film?
You mean by default?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you know.
So Comet goes by, wipes out population of Earth, except for people who were sheltered away to varying degrees. If you were completely sheltered away, you're fine. If you were like sheltered away, but you had a window open or something like that, then you were exposed and you're going to die in a few days anyway. But yeah, wipes out, and they never really go into it, but presumably the vast majority of the Earth's population, and it takes place, the events within the movie's scope take place within Los Angeles. It focuses on a pair of sisters and the people that they interact with. And as they try to figure out the brave new world and just surviving the environment with the people they encounter.
Yes, and we are joined by Kara. Yay, she was able to work through the tech issues, and she is with us. Hello, Kara.
Hello. Thanks for just tolerating me. I know I'm late. Sorry about that.
No worries about it. Ray was just giving the synopsis of this wonderful film of Night of the Comet, and glad you could be here as well. Always a pleasure to have you here with us. And yes, it is... the way you say the synopsis, you go, okay, it's kind of this toss-off 80s sci-fi film. But if you watch it, I think you can see why this film is still talked about, still played at festivals and midnight showings decades later. Because there's a lot of things in this film that you didn't see before in the 80s quite like this. And it's watching it again. I watch it every so often. Just watching it for the show again, I'm just like, wow, you clean up the special effects a little bit. This could easily still play today. It's one of those films. Kara, do you remember when you first saw Night of the Comet?
I was probably about 11 or 12. I caught it as a Saturday afternoon movie after all the cartoons were over. I just stumbled across it. I'm like, what's this weird thing?
And what'd you think of it?
I liked it. I didn't know what to expect. Of course, I went into it not knowing what kind of a movie it was. And as soon as I saw these comet zombies, or I don't know what you call them, I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch this.
That's a great name, Comet Zombies.
I like that, Comet Zombies.
It's probably a working title for the movie.
Comet zombies. What about you, Ray? You remember when you first saw this?
I don't remember specifically. I know it was in late high school or college at some point.
Sure.
But I really like what you said about, basically for me, if you look at this thing on paper, it's like, okay, this is just another schlock, whatever. And then you actually watch it, and it's like, oh no, this is so well done. Because on paper, this shouldn't work, even maybe as a cult film, but it should not be as good as it is.
Yeah.
Because this and this and this, blah. Yeah, but it does. It is put together so well. Especially the writer-director in particular. And now the name is blanking on me. But
it was a name. I had it up. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
I've got the box right here. It is Thom Eberhardt. And the reason I know that easier than looking it up on IMDb is because I have my beta tape version of Night of the Comet release here from 1985 for the 1984 film. CBS, Fox, Atlantic. Yeah, there you go. Beta. So it's very small. And here's the label. It's so old the glue has come off, but I still have it.
Nice. So, but yeah, I just remember it struck me then, and it struck me now. In fact, I was talking to someone. I rewatched this a couple months ago, and it was my wife actually, and she's not really into these movies. I'm like, okay, but you should maybe give this one a chance because it actually is solidly done. It's not just one of these that you're going to roll your eyes at and walk away. It has a lot going for it. So
it does. It does. And watching it again, like I said, easily you could clean it up a little and it would still apply to today. And one of the things that makes it stand out, and we got some comments already from X-Ray Punch. So glad you joined in to tune in, X-Ray. What stands out for me is just the way the characters are. This is like you said, on paper, if you read if you just read the synopsis, you're like, once you see the characters and the performance of the characters in this film, you're going to be surprised by everybody involved and where this film goes. And we're going to go into it tonight a bit. And it's just surprising. And X-Ray, I think it's very fitting. X-Ray Punch says this was a gem of the 80s. He says the only negative thing for him is that there aren't more zombie attack scenes. And I imagine that's due to budget because this was made on a fairly small budget. But X-Ray also makes the comment, if cosplay was a thing back in the 80s, which it was, but it was definitely niche, 80s women would have been cosplaying the two main sisters. They're that iconic.
Especially the younger sister.
Yeah, Kelli
in
Maroney.
Her cheerleader uniform.
In the cheerleader uniform, in a couple of awkward 80s scenes, but other than that, but yeah, Kelli is fantastic. Catherine Mary Stewart's fantastic, and a very young Chakotay, Robert Beltran, is in here as well, which I always love seeing him. But you're right, everybody talks about you talk about Sarah Connor, you talk about Sigourney Weaver's Ripley, but a lot of the conversations seem to miss out on Regina and Samantha, who are very strong female characters pretty much throughout this film. Cara, what do you think of our two sisters?
I'm going to go with the unpopular opinion. I think they were kind of cliche, kind of ditzy. I'm kind of like, I know one's 18. I forget how old the other one's supposed to be, even though you're probably in your mid-20s. You look considerably older. But you guys are kind of like, you're dumb teenagers.
They're as far as personality goes, yeah, I can see that they are 80s teenagers, but they still have moxie to them. I think more so, they're not exactly damsels in distresses though either.
No, I like how especially that opening scene where I think it's Samantha, the younger sister, she stands up to the stepmom and they get into like this dynasty cat fight before she gets slugged.
Yeah, she actually slapped her mom, slaps her, and then there's a pause, and then she just slaps her, and then her stepmom punches her.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
That escalated quickly.
I'm just like, oh, okay. Well, and then you have the older sister as well, Regina, who is she wears her activities on her sleeve, so to speak. And, she's a sexually confident woman. You can tell she's, they make it because, that's what they were saying back then. Are you going to pay me to make it? That's, what that says about me. $15. Because Regina, she works at a movie theater, go figure, and she kicks ass at Tempest. So right there,
right.
I'm watching this as 10-year-old me, and I'm like, oh, holy crap, she's playing Tempest and kicking butt, and she works for a movie theater. So right there, it's just too not like, thank you, yep, okay. So go ahead.
No, speaking of the movie theater, did you catch the movie poster on the inside of the door, of the exit door at the movie theater?
The Death Race poster, or which one?
If there's that, I didn't catch it, but on the exit door, because her boyfriend goes out and gets pummeled by
a zombie
with a wrench. On the door is a poster for the 1932 Clark Gable, Jean Harlow movie, Red Dust.
Oh yes, yeah. I got that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the doors also has a Death Race
nice
poster on it.
I had not caught that.
Yeah, there's a Corman reference. There's Death Race in there, and I love that movie theater. But so you got our main character. So she already appealed to my younger self when I watched this, which is on cable. I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it on cable because it was cable fodder for quite some time.
I think I rented it on VHS at some point.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So, the character appealed to me, but I mean, they are, as X-Ray says, they were stereotypical LA Valley chicks. So they were written that way as far as their personality goes, but at least they had a little bit, they weren't helpless, which is what I think stood out for me with their characters, is that, pretty much almost any situation they got into, there may have been a little bit like, oh, for a second panic, but then they suck it up and they take it, they don't dish out as much as they got throughout most of this film. They didn't need some guy to save them. I got the feeling Ray, what did you think of the sisters? Did you think they were like that?
Yeah, I liked it, and I totally see the ditzy elements, especially the younger sister. I will say though, and they kind of tied the whole. Apparently, the dad is this special forces Green Beret guy off on Black Ops missions, but just in terms of them not needing, some man to rescue them, when they shoot up the car with the submachine gun, and the younger sister, her name is Samantha, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Samantha's like having to mess with it to get it to work, and it eventually gives out. And she basically says, yeah, this gun is crap. Dad would have gotten us Uzis.
Uzis.
And so they're like knowledgeable of submachine gun weaponry, And it's like, wow,
but they're still Valley.
You may be an average Valley girl, I guess, but that's not normal. And the fact that seriously, just the whole physics of machine guns, the fact that she's able to control it without just the kick of it sending it everywhere, which in some movies you see that where people are losing it. Man, she has a hold on that thing, and
because
she's got control of it. It's like, wow, you know what you're doing. Nicely done. I love the follow-up line where she says, Dad would have gotten us Uzis. And then what's the older sister's name? Regina?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she says the car couldn't tell the difference.
So there is good banter, but no, I totally get what I get what you're saying, Car, because even though they're knowledgeable, even though they are tough and they don't really need the guy, but they still have a to rescue him. They're very confident in themselves.
Mhm.
You also do still have a younger sister wanting a boyfriend, like still boy crazy, and
They're
wanting
fighting
that.
over Hector.
They're good old Hector. I liked his character though, at least though, Robert Beltran, he was interesting in this because you don't when you first meet him, you think he's going to be well. First off, it goes with Kara. I think this goes with what you're saying that these aren't teenagers. they are not teenagers played, but that's typical 80s. But Beltran is even older, isn't he, Kara? He's an older guy in comparison to where these characters are.
I want to say he was early 30s.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, so then you've got that angle, and immediately the younger sister thinks that Regina, her older sister, wants to get with the guy, and she's just like, no. But then she does do a little flirting. It's just that really awkward 80s writing to where that part I was watching it going, yeah. Especially the dream sequence with the younger sister. Because I'm like, she's supposed to be like 17 or 16, and this is awkward. I'm like, okay, we didn't need this. We didn't need this scene.
I don't know. She's dreaming like she falls asleep watching Stars or Skinamax or something.
Right. Yeah, the way her dream is, she falls asleep and has a dream that's kind of out of Skinamax, and you're just like, yeah, but she's not 18. This is not right. So that's that 80s element in there that we've seen before. But X-Ray Punch also said that he likes to think this takes place in the Chopping Mall universe.
Okay. Yes, because when I watched this, and when you mentioned the Death Race poster, I'm like, that is so appropriate. Doing so much with so little is totally Corman. And then Chopping Mall was 86, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think. And yes, when I watched this movie, I can't even tell you what it is. I think of Chopping Mall every time. Every time. I'm like, oh. And obviously part of it's the whole
Oh, we lost Ray. Uh-oh. He may have had storm issue, I'm not sure. But yeah, what do you think, Akara? Do you think this could take place in the Chopping Mall universe?
I don't know if I'm going to step on anything that he was about to say or if he makes it back, but it does remind me that malls were a very big thing in the 80s, especially like, I think, what was it? Initiation had a mall scene also. Mm-hmm. This one had a little mall shopping montage, and then they pull out the weapons. And it's like, leave us alone. We don't need credit cards.
Yeah. let's just go put clothes out, which, what teenagers would, that's the one thing is they do what you would kind of expect teenagers to do. It's like, oh, I don't have to pay for anything. I can go to the department store and take whatever expensive clothes I want.
Well, it's a nice throwback to normalcy, and then you have to remember that they're still teenage girls. They're doing what any young person would do, but on the creepy side, these guys were probably up in the surveillance room watching them changing and doing all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, the attention shoppers, the creepy guys.
I hope you plan to pay for all of that.
Yeah. What'd you think of the mall scene there? You got cut off there, Ray. But
I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
That's okay. You just got excited and pressed the wrong button, maybe. I don't know.
Actually, that's what I thought too. But I'm like, wait, I didn't actually touch anything. But that said, I enjoy the mall, and I really like the mall zombie gang, whatever they are, especially the lead guy. Which, if we're playing 6 Degrees of Mark the Movie Man, there's he appeared in Dead Heat. That the guy.
Oh. There you go.
There you go.
Film.
He played a zombie in Dead Heat, as I recall. So
that's right.
But just the way he articulates and then his level of snark, I just really enjoy that character. I think this is the right one. I really do. It's just so, yeah. I'm sorry, miss. He's over the top and highly entertaining. I really like that character. But you're absolutely right, Kara, that it's creepy. And there are parts of this that don't age well, especially, and not to go too far sidebar, but
no, go ahead.
They occasionally mention, oh, but there's no man for me in this world. And I'm like, maybe you didn't date so well.
Yeah, but a modern day woman would say, grab a rabbit, sister. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well played.
You can get them for free now too. So there you go. You don't even have to. You got your pick. There you go.
Need a Peter Cottontail, not a Peter. There you go.
There you go. You got your pick of him. But we also got Petty in here. Welcome, Petty. Glad to have you in the room as always. They appreciate it's good night, everyone. It's good that there are still people who cherish video cassettes. I very much do, to the chagrin of my wife, who is like, you can't bring any more in the house. Where are you going to put them? I'm like, I'll find a place. But yes, gotta love the videotapes. That's how I watch some of these old films, is on the videotape. If I had a beta machine, I would have watched this on beta, that's for sure. X-Ray also said they were totally Reagan youth kids, especially in their early interactions with Chakotay. Yeah, I mean, there are elements that don't age well, as Ray said. There's them still kind of wanting a man and kind of, going after the guy that shows up, even if he's the last guy on Earth and a little old for them. We get the creepy dream scene with Samantha, which you just don't think about what the age of the character is. As long as you think of the age of the actress, you're going to be okay. Just don't think of the age of the character getting down to their skivvies. And you're just like, okay, we could cut this. We could cut this one dream sequence out.
I don't know. It was a little too, don't stand so close to me at times.
Yeah. But I mean, this is the 80s, and that song, which, yes, totally. But I mean, this is also what, 3 years later, we had the Winger song 17. So this whole decade was just totally cool with this stuff. So basically, that decade did not age well.
No. Well, the problem with this decade, and we've seen it in other movies, we saw it in kind of the late 70s, but it really came through in the 80s. And I stand by this, is the 80s is probably one of those decades that is most geared, since I would say the 50s, to the youth. Everything, if you look at the 80s in pop culture, not so much today, and I only know this because I've watched my kids grow up and watch pop culture in that, and where it's angled towards, and it hits a more diverse, I think, group. But definitely in the 80s, it was targeted from like age 12 to age 17. Your music, your hair rock, everything, even though it was adults producing it, everything they produced that it was a hit involved teenagers, which you look back at now and go, yeah, this decade didn't age well with that respect. Not just 17, but there's a number of other songs that if you listen to the words, you're like, or if you watch the movies and you're like,
or watch the music videos,
or the music videos, and you're just like, okay, I know what age the person acting is, but their character, yeah. And X-Ray Punch, he mentions the main mall mutant reminded him a bit of Gilbert Gottfried. Yeah, I can see that. Not quite the gravelly and yell, but the way he enunciated and delivered his lines definitely was. But with the mall, we come to bringing in the other element, which you don't see coming in this film. Suddenly we have this organization, this secret lab think tank of scientists who have been searching for survivors who end up coming to the rescue of the sisters. They're the ones that end up blowing away these mutants who kidnap our sisters. And they are an interesting bunch. Kara, what'd you think of our scientists?
it came in left field. Like, who are you guys? Where'd you come from? And that lead scientist lady, I don't know if I'm the only one, but she reminded me of Billy Draco. Like, you look a little too familiar.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I could say that. That was Audrey White is the character played by Mary Warnovo, who actually she was in Warlock. That's always a fun movie, and she
Oh,
was
the medium,
in
I think.
yep, and she was in Frog, and she was in a lot of films. Even before this, she was a veteran actress. She was in Death Race 2000 as Calamity Jane.
Hmm.
So that's where I finally looking at that. That's where and Rock and Roll High School. She played Miss Togar in Rock and Roll High School and Silent Night, Bloody Night. I mean, so she's been in a lot by the time she gets to here. And it's an early female. I don't know. Would you call her a villain, Ray?
No. In fact, the last time I watched this, I'm like, I think at the time she was probably considered a villain.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, I think she's just trying to do what's needed to survive. And she seems to be more aware of the situation and more willing to do what needs to be done than everyone else in this ostensible think tank.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, it goes back to that conversation of, if a guy did this, it would just be considered a guy. But because female doing it, she's a bitch. I'm like, okay, so she's just a capable person.
Right.
And I don't think she takes any joy. Like when she, all the stuff she does, she doesn't seem to take any joy in this. She's just like, this is what needs to be done. Well, the end.
And what's also interesting is she's big on them not taking survivors. And at first you think she's just being elitist. But later on, when she meets up with the sisters and they take Regina away and leave Samantha because Samantha has a condition where she gets nervous, she gets rashes, and she drinks. Well, one of the conditions to where you're going to turn into a zombie is you start to dehydrate and you get rashes and you drink a lot. Right. So they think maybe she's infected, though she puts up an argument. And you think Audrey White, you think she's going to kill Samantha. It's all led up to it. She's letting the male scientist think but she doesn't actually kill her, does she, Kara?
No, she kind of does like this Romeo and Juliet thing, just puts her to sleep, and she just kind of pops up later, which I was surprised by. I thought that she was just going to be in on it with, well, let's just get her out of the way. It's all in the name of science. We need good specimens.
Right. And even then, though, she seemed to be turning away from the specimens. Where I was going before with that, before my brain jumped track, is at first you think she's being the elitist, not taking survivors. Now you realize maybe underneath her very tough, quote unquote, bitchy exterior, which, again, the guys, all scientists treat her like a person like that, though she's not. You realize she's trying to save these survivors. She, even though she's putting up the exterior of, no, we shouldn't bring them in, at the same time, I think underneath, I don't know if it's consciously or subconsciously, she doesn't want to take them because 2 kids are survivors. And she's like, we shouldn't take kids. And the guy scientists are like, no, we need blood. So we're going to take kids. And she's against that. They don't want to take the sisters. Yet they need fresh blood, and she's kind of against it. So you almost get the feeling like she's trying to protect survivors from them in a way. Or am I off on that, Ray?
No, that's fair. I mean, they chalk it up to sodium pentothal, which I think was like the 80s, early 90s cure for whatever. We need to drug somebody and have some effect. Sodium pentothal.
It sounds cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But she offs herself though. Just as Chakotay showed up.
She does with whatever that was, which I suppose maybe she OD'd herself on sodium pentothal, whatever, if that's a thing. But Yeah, she does. She kills herself, and she clearly intentionally helps the sister to survive.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say
Yeah, and
you're accurate with that.
yeah, so and I noticed it most this time, paying attention more to her character. That yeah, at first you think, well, she's being one way, but maybe no, she's not. Unlike Jeffrey Lewis's Dr. Carter, who
Right.
runs the think tank, who's gradually turning into a Dawn of the Dead zombie. He resembled it quite a bit.
Mhm.
I I like he was the true villain, and I like that
Mm.
scene with him and Catherine Mary Stewart, where he's interrogating her, and that's
Mhm.
where it kind of showed that she at least has some street smarts. At least I thought, with the interview, the way it goes, where she realizes something's suspect fairly quick. Do you think that what do you think of that scene where she confronts Kara, the scientist, when he's interrogating her, and how she realizes something's up?
I mean, I think she holds her own fairly well. She
Mhm.
has a good defense mechanism. She really doesn't let on that she's doing something else, that she's caught on to other people. So I think she kind of carries it well, but um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I really don't know, like from the doctor's aspect, if he just kind of reads it as, well, you're slacking off, or I'm not too sure on that.
Yeah, well, I just got the impression he underestimated them, which kind of underlies a couple of other scenes in here where they seem to underestimate the sisters. On what they're capable of.
Which is
Um,
pretty easy because they act a certain way, but they know about different things that you wouldn't assume they would.
right. And I think that's why I enjoy their characters, is because yeah, they do act a certain way until they need to act a different way, and and then they like, oh, we've got to do this now. We got to go out of our Valley Girl and be the girls that our dad raised, which are ones who can handle guns and have no problems blowing people away. Ray, what'd you think of her and her interaction with the doctor, and that kind of key scene where you realize things are not on the up and up with this group?
Yeah, I agree with what you've said so far. I will say that ties to one of the few flaws with this movie for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that is that the sisters would have allowed themselves to be separated, especially so
Right.
unquestioningly. It's just this boom, they're separated. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think they would have raised some hell, and it was just no. But yeah, she catches on. And I also don't get how the rest of the think tank, I'm sorry, they're smart enough to know that, hey, someone's putting on sunglasses, litmus test.
Yeah.
And Carter throws on some sunglasses, but the other, specifically the dudes there, the other scientists are like, oh, this is normal. Really? You know what's going on? He just put on sunglasses. I mean, whack the dude. But yeah, she totally holds her own there, including when condescending asshole scientist comes in and says, it's highly irrational for you to just attack an inanimate object. And then she whacks the dude right there as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank goodness.
Thank God
What's
for
that?
80s keyboards. You couldn't knock someone out today with a keyboard, but those old 80s keyboards, man, those suckers
Right.
weighed like 15 pounds.
Pre-ergonomic keyboards. Yeah.
That's one of them Commodore 64 type keyboards she clocks the guy with.
Yeah. Tandy 1000.
So I chuckled at that when I saw that. Oh, hey, we got Mr. Ian Simmons from afar. He joins us in the chat and says,
Nice.
let's play a game. It's called Scary Noises.
Yes, right? That's a scary noise.
Yeah.
I love that character. So
You could cosplay as that character, right? I think you could pull him off.
Yeah, I think I've got the zombie face going for me.
You just have to. You'd have to do the dark hair, so
Yeah.
you might have to.
Yeah.
Well, and some makeup to
Right.
hollow out the eyes because they're not. Your eyes are not that hollow. You're
Really?
Just saying. Yeah. No, you're good. Yeah.
Okay,
no,
cool.
You're good.
So yeah, but no, that part was really well done as well. So yeah.
There's like a number of key scenes, and we're talking a smaller budget film, so they don't have a whole lot of locations, but I think they utilize the locations that they have fairly well, and they give you enough in the scientist lab to get the idea across it's a scientist lab. Yeah.
Right.
Where they have the guys and you have the lady scientists who are talking about the corpses on the table that they're using for blood production. What do you think of these two female scientists, Ray? They're kind of the juxtaposition, the opposite of our sisters, aren't they? In a way.
In a way, I mean, they don't play a huge role.
Right.
I mean, their best moment is when they get shut down by Regina, where her sister shows up and she's alive, and then those two scientists start to make a move, and Regina just turns around and says something like, "Don't."
She's got the guts.
And they just okay, yeah, we're down, we're good, thank you.
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess I don't have a lot of thoughts about those two. The main female scientist, and I apologize because I don't remember her name. She was awesome, and I really enjoyed that character a lot.
Audrey White, it was kind of
the most capable
early.
person in the movie. Yes.
Yeah. Cara, what'd you think of the two nurses in here? I mean, they don't get a whole lot of screen time, but they're kind of colder than the guys almost in this, aren't they?
I kind of thought that they were a little more feminine than Audrey. I kind of read them more as a little more throwaway. They were definitely a lot more softer, a little more human, whereas Audrey, who's the total opposite, is more human, but she seems very robotic.
And the ones who were softer were the ones talking about, they're just corpses. We just take their blood anyway. Or the kids, they're like, you're going to live with Santa forever. That scene was like, wow. They were cold there a bit when they were convincing the kids to breathe in the gas. It's just like, oh, okay. that's kind of cold. Hey, Petty's got a question. It's a silly question. There are no silly questions. Is there a way to know which movie is going to be treated live? So, which movies will be treated live so that beforehand they can be able to interact with the experts more intelligently? I don't normally post a schedule, Petty, but I can start doing that. I'll think about that. I'll start posting schedules for the month ahead of time so our viewers can watch ahead of time and ask more questions. That's a good idea. Thank you, Petty. Happy to have you here. And we will do that on our on the spoiler room page that we have. So, but yeah, good question about that. But back with the movie, we get this weird dynamic near the end because Beltran suddenly knows how to use explosives. I'm like sitting here, goes, he's got wads of dynamite, putting them under cars, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, after learning how to kill people and eating Raoul, he wanted to up the game.
Nice. That part was kind of like, oh, okay, he knows how to work with detonators and that now.
Was that a mercury switch? Good for you, dude.
Well, I don't know. They did establish. Did they establish he was a soldier? Or
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that. He was a truck driver, but
yeah, he was a truck driver. I don't remember.
I don't remember offhand if they established if he was a soldier, but he just suddenly he knows how to work detonators. Though he does get his own scene, which I am surprised about. It's the only time we break away from the sisters. There's only a few times where we break away from the sisters. One is with the scientist when we're introduced, but later on, he goes to his mom, making him a wonderful young man who's just thinking of his mom during the apocalypse. This adult guy, and he goes to his mom's, and well, it doesn't play out like he thought. What'd you think of our guy Hector and his scene where we get to see him go to his parents' house, Kara?
Uh, I thought that was very well done. It definitely plays more off of the Hispanic dynamic where families are very close knit. You always come together for holidays. And it's in the middle of your discussion, I kind of remembered all of this is going on during Christmas. And it's
Right.
no one ever thinks to talk about this one like, Die Hard, is that a Christmas movie? I'm like, Night of the Comet, is that a Christmas movie?
Yeah, I forgot. I always keep forgetting that. In all honesty, when I watch it, I end up forgetting that as well. That this is a Christmas movie. Technically, it does take place during Christmas. You have Christmas music, you have decorations, and he even dresses up as Santa at one point when he comes back with flowers for Regina. Which again, don't think of the age difference. Just don't think of age. Okay, you're better off not thinking of
He
age.
thought about her. That's good enough.
Yeah, he got her flowers, so never mind the age difference of possibly 15 years or 12 years difference between the two.
Enough eventually. She's one of the few remaining women.
Wow. Wow.
Well, as options dwindle, perspectives change.
Well, she starts off 18, so technically she's already of age.
Yeah. And she's already established too that she is experienced. So she is confident in her she does it like men, and she does has no problems flirting with guys, especially if this is going to be the last guy on Earth. Which we learn later on that it's not just creepy scientists and Hector. Later on, as the movie comes to the finish, there where they've dispatched the mad scientists, we have our survivors, and then we have a family moment. Kara, what'd you think about the ending of this film?
That was pretty weird. I didn't. Especially from what was it, Regina? Like, I don't think she was that wild, but I don't see her that settled either, where she'd have everybody dressed up like they were going to Sunday church and snapping photos. That was a little weird to me.
Yeah, that came off a little out of character for me too. I'm like, look, she might like the kids, and she might like Hector, but never before that scene has she given any hint about wanting to be, in a more domestic type role, for lack of a better term, in the more traditional, I should say, family type role where she's taking care of them like they're her kids in that, because she's never. In fact, she get that one scene earlier on when she's being interviewed by the doctor where she goes, well, I thought I was pregnant once, but that was the scariest 3 weeks of my life.
Yeah.
And now at the end of the film, she's acting like mom to these two kids. So yeah, it was a little weird that dynamic. What about you, Ray? What do you think? This ending was a little bit odd with this dynamic?
It was, especially with Regina. Don't cross against the light. And I'm like, really? Because earlier in the movie, you would have just been like, yeah, cross against the light. Someone comes at you, you empty an Uzi clip into them. And I get what they were doing there. They were trying to, as they literally say, the burden of society is on us. And I'm paraphrasing. Right. But, I mean, I get what they're trying to say there. It just kind of seems like, and they don't really, I don't think they say necessarily how much later that was. I suppose it could have been months later. It obviously wasn't years later.
No.
But some time has passed. And so part of me was, yes, this is disingenuous. And then there was, another part where I was like, well, we don't know. X number of weeks or months have passed. I suppose this is a thing she has gotten into as a way of shouldering the responsibility, especially because she's really the alpha personality here. I mean,
right, out of the entire group.
She's the brains of the operation. So her doing this, I'm like, okay, it is out of left field somewhat, and it seems there seems to be a disconnect there. But at the same time, I'm like, I think this is where they would have ended up eventually, and so here at the end of the movie, they've got to, get it going, and they throw it in there.
I think it's a little bit jarring, and it's about the only complaint that I kind of have with it. It's not really a complaint; it's just one of those things where it's out of left field. You don't have a time frame because up until then, Ray, we were just talking about it before the show. Most of the events in Night of the Comet take over the place over a span of 48 hours, maybe, if that, at most. So, you've got that, and then you've got this scene. You're like, well, how far along is this? I mean, there's still dust on the road, well, we do get the rain. I should say there is a cleansing rain that happens.
Right.
But that means more zombies. That always happens.
That's true. That is fair. That is fair to say. But you do get the rain that just happens out of nowhere, which suddenly cleanses the entire area of the poisons, that are in the air from the comet. Which we got Mr. Voice. We didn't talk about it in the beginning. We got a voiceover. And I know how people shoot down voiceovers, but I love this voiceover, how it implies 65 million years ago, this comet came by when the dinosaurs disappeared. It's like, what movie you're getting into. We're not even going to hide the fact of what's going to happen to people.
Right. Subtle as a thrown brick.
So I mean, and you get the rated, clear, and happy ending. So yeah, they're doing the family dynamic, I think, to try to give this a happy ending, especially with the sister. When you have random other young man similar to her age, out of all of LA's survivors, happens to cross paths with our family group, and happens
with one of the best lines in the movie. She says, "Oh, cool car," and he just offhandedly says, "Thanks, I have 23 of them."
What'd you think of this with the car, with the random guy showing up? I mean, this is classic movie tropes right here now that we fall into, isn't it?
I didn't see the setup because there's such a big gap in between the beginning of the movie and then the end of the movie. But you find out he's the arcade cabinet arch nemesis with I forget what his initials were.
DMK.
DMK.
He was the cruel person that took 6th place on Tempest. That's right. Yeah.
I didn't make that connection. Okay. Nice. Because I caught the license plate. I caught the plate, and I remember in the beginning of the movie with DMK. I hadn't made that connection. Nice. Nice.
Kara did. You mentioned it. The arch nemesis, which they don't even lead on that Regina recognizes that. So, but it's weird how he happens to, as Kicking the Seat states, talking a ghost town. I mean, LA's big, and there's not many people left, and I understand they could run across each other, but that part was just, it got movie at the end. It's like, okay, this is just Hollywood now.
Sure, but if you figure they go to the same arcade, they must live at least in somewhere the same vicinity. So, as opposed to clear across town. I mean,
yeah.
But yes, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because they pretty established, like I pick up 95% of the entire planet's population got nixed.
Well, and those that didn't, I mean, one of the cool things is wherever they are at the end, they do not have to worry about zombies.
No.
Just because apparently whoever turned into zombies within 72 hours, game over.
They turned into
They're
dust.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they get around that idea of the eternal zombies because the zombies
Right.
just vaporize into more dust, and you just get
Right.
the Hoover vac out, and then you go,
Right.
you know, suck up the zombie that way. Uh,
Right.
Leaf blower.
the leaf blower. There you go.
Right.
Leaf blower. I
Right.
like that.
Even better.
I love the one gimmick when they're first wake up and you got Regina who realizes something's going on. She got attacked by the zombie, which I loved that fight actually quite a bit. But you get the gimmick to where Samantha finds the dog collar. Oh, Muffy, where did she go? And there's a pile of dust there. I find that scene humorous. I know it's cruel.
Muffy is kibble.
Muffy, not even kibble. She's like cocaine, red cocaine. I know.
Do a couple of lines of Muffy.
And then finish it up with a line of the stepmom. Oh, yeah, slap me now, will ya? Oh, yeah.
Don't forget Chuck.
Don't forget Chuck.
Yeah, don't forget Chuck. Which was also a working title for this movie.
Don't forget Chuck. I do like how she presents that, though. And don't forget Chuck, and she just pours the shoe out, and there's nothing but dust. And she's getting dust on herself, too, and I'm just like, you're getting Chuck all over you. It's just, you got to be more careful with your Chuck, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but
I don't know. You just keep bringing up Chuck.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I was waiting to see how we could work that into the mix.
Hey, you're so welcome.
Yeah, Carl, what'd you think of that fight with the zombie between the zombie and Catherine Mary Stewart, though? I mean, that's actually her kind of tussling with the zombie. What'd you think of that fight?
I think she held her own fairly well. I didn't expect her to just really go at him. It's especially just because we don't know much about the character in the beginning. I figured, oh, you're done.
She's going to get bit or something, and that's going to come up later on, But yeah, I like that fight, and the fact that it was actually her getting kind of tossed, because that is Catherine. That's not a stunt double that gets tossed in the garbage, because there's a camera up close of her, and it's like, oh no, they actually hip toss their lead in this. That's where movie making brain kicks in. Unfortunately, you start thinking of some of those things. You're like, that's your lead you just hip tossed in the garbage.
Who does she think she is? Tom Cruise?
Well, no, I just, you think of injury happening and then delays in production. You hear about these things. So I just, it was awesome that she did that. At the same time, though, I'm thinking for a film like this, that was a bit of a risk because
it was stunt trash.
It was stunt trash. That's true. That it was stunt trash. But for what it is, I think there's still a lot to enjoy, even though there are problems that we've mentioned tonight. There's a reason why people are still talking about it. There's, I think, a lot of interesting and smart ideas in here, along with your normal 80s uncomfortable tropes. It's kind of a mixed bag, but I still enjoy watching it. And watching it again this time, for me, even though I've watched it many times, I still dig it quite a bit for a lot of the stuff in there. And you can almost see some influences from filmmakers later on that may have borrowed from this, those that have done like the zombie or the Comet film. I mean, this makes a great double feature with, I'm going to say it, Maximum Overdrive. This would make a great double feature with Maximum Overdrive. But for just because they involve comets. Okay, I'm that simple. All right, I'm not that complicated a guy. But we'll wrap it up. Final thoughts for you, Cara. Do you think this film, would you still recommend it? Do you still enjoy it, even with the issues of the 80s that are in it?
Definitely being a lot older, I saw it a lot differently. And I don't know if it's just because of this whole nonsense woke culture versus watching it as a kid. I still enjoyed it, even though I noticed, okay, some of these things are a little weird. Some parts of the film are just way off in left field. It's not a perfect movie. There are some slow points, but I'd say if you like weird movies, if you like zombie movies, give it a chance. And if you're bored by the time it's over, but you're still not done watching TV, follow it up with The Gate.
Oh, there you go. That's a good follow up. Yeah, The Gate. That's a fun one. One that's not talked about a lot, and it should be. Creepy film. And Ray, what about you? Your final thought with Night of the Comet?
I have a couple of things here.
Sure.
First is just part of the reason this movie works so well, I think, is, so many cult movies. It's like, oh, they're really, in terms of checking boxes, awesome, really checks off these boxes. But, oh, sure, these boxes, it's horrible at. And this one isn't awesome in any way, but it also consistently is not poor. It just checks the box consistently in the solid category. No awesome, but no poor side, and it does it really well. I will also point out the writer-director has a number of credits. In fact, his next movie was a movie that I haven't seen in many years, but I remember I enjoyed a lot, and it was in the all-in-one-night subgenre. It was a Keanu Reeves movie with, and I can't remember her name, Laura. She's Aunt Becky from Full House, but it was called The Night Before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his next movie. And then he also in 96 did Captain Ron. He was the writer-director on that Kurt Russell movie.
Well,
so he has a history of being solid.
And don't forget that before that, year or two before Captain Ron, he did Gross Anatomy.
Right. Yep. Was he the writer on that? He was the director. I don't think
he was at least the director. I don't know.
Yes, he was the director.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he
did do that. So yeah, he's got a lot of solid credits to his name. So I would just say that I'm a fan of this movie, and it is not certainly the best movie in the genre, but it is one that I can consistently point people to and say, look, if you're on the fence about these sorts of movies, or if you're just looking for an entertaining good movie, watch this. I know how it looks. It don't just stop with the description on the back or what you read on Wikipedia or IMDb. Actually watch it, because it's so much better than it looks on paper.
Yes, it does. Though I will say the write-up on the back of the beta tape is actually better than the write-up on IMDb. So
that's not really surprising, though.
Which isn't really surprising at all. And I feel the same way. There are some issues. In fact, I will say this though, if you cut the one dream sequence in here with Kelli Maroney's character, if you cut that one sequence out, which isn't really needed because you do a dual Inception dream sequence, so you could easily cut that scene out and still leave the other dream within a dream scene, and it would not take away anything from her being scared. This is actually a good, I would say, like starter horror movie for people. It's not really gory. It still has horror elements in there. It is campy, so it's not taking itself too seriously. There are creepy moments in here, but not super scary moments in here. And it could be a gateway horror film. And there's very little exploitation elements. Like I said, outside of the one dream sequence, you cut that out, there's actually not a lot of exploit. Like what you consider, like you mentioned, Ray, cult. When you say cult film, there's some exploit check mark boxes, like you say, but it doesn't have all those, but it's still one of those films. And there are some smart things that are set up in here too, if you pay attention to the background stuff. Like, the script is a bit smarter than you might think, because it all tells you everything ahead of time. Like on the radio, they talk about how the comet would first come in contact with those in Australia, but we haven't been able to talk to them or reach them at all. Then you also get the setup of the radio DJ in the background saying, hey, I'm going to put this on automatic so I can go out and look at the comet. And then later on, they're surprised when they go to the radio station and it's all reel to reel, auto taped. But they set it up ahead of time. They told you what was going to happen. And it does that throughout the film. It does actually telegraph a number of things. especially in that beginning sequence, which is a little smarter than your average bear when it comes to a cult or B film. You know, that thought put into those little background details. And that's what I dig about it as well, is it puts it a little bit above those other cult films or whatever for me, because of all those elements, great performances by everybody involved. They know what type of film they're making, and they're all in. They're not they're not just phoning it in or whatever with their performances. Everybody's sold in on this movie, and that helps as well. And yeah, it's still fun, even with the problematic elements. Overall, I think this is fun, and it can be a gateway horror film. Just fast forward past the one underwear scene, and you'll be fine. Because there really isn't any other. Just when you think they're going to put the kids to sleep and do something mean to them, you don't get that. You know, the guys on the table aren't really gory. So I mean, as far as like gore or other elements like that, it's missing. They're dust. That's about as safe as you can.
It's kind of like a strategically creepy.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's strategically creepy. And Marvel Endgame borrowed from it, or Infinity War. So there you go. Yeah, I just said that. Thanos and his snap and everybody disappearing. Night of the Comet did it first, baby. Okay. Anyway, sorry. And one final comment. What? And one final comment from Kicking the Seat. He says, I'd pay full price to see a movie called Stunt Trash. All right, Stunt Trash, copyright Spoiler Room. We'll start working on that script tomorrow.
It's the even lower budget sequel to Street Trash.
There you go. Nice. I think we could write that. I think we could. Yeah, I think so. I hope you folks enjoyed this conversation. I know Night of the Comet's been talked about a lot by many people, but there's a reason why. And that's why we say watch it, and you will see why it's still being talked about today in a lot of circles. It's still brought up, still getting midnight showings, because it is one of those films that it's why, at least for me, why I watch a lot of B movies, because you get the standard B movies that are like, okay, but you watch enough of them, you run across a film like Night of the Comet that you're just like, wow, there's something different about it. And so there you have it, folks. Now this is where I give my crew a license to shill if they have anything to shill. So Kara, the floor is yours, my friend. License to shill.
I don't have anything current coming up, but I always have tons of reviews. If anybody wants to check out some of my older video reviews, they're up on youtube.com/horror retrospective. There's always tons of odd, obscure movies, stuff similar to this or even weirder.
Very interesting stuff. Absolutely. Check that channel out. Some good stuff out there. And Ray, do you got anything you want to plug? You want to plug the fest at all?
I am the eponymous Ray. I exist.
Yes.
I have nothing to plug.
Ray exists, and that's his plug. The world is a better place with Ray. Everybody should have a Ray. So there we go. We'll make you bobblehead.
Sure, let's go with that.
Everybody have a Ray. We'll make you a Funko Pop. There you go. You just got to decide. Oh, we'll make you a Funko Pop in the outfit of the main mall mutant from Night of the Comet.
That sounds fabulous.
Awesome. And we actually have one more question from Petty, which is actually an appropriate question. So stick around, folks, because Petty asks a really good one. Do you think it could happen that movies like these that have the uncomfortable scenes, like the one you mentioned earlier with the teenager, are canceled in the future and can't see it more? Possibly. I would say with the environment that we have, it would have been canceled already. Ray, what do you think? Do you think in the future a film like this might still get canceled?
So hard to say the way things are going. I mean, seriously, someone gets a bug up their ass, boom, done. I don't know. I mean, it's
start a campaign.
Dated. Yeah, it's dated in a few ways, but I mean, I don't know. I would like to think not. This is at the end of the day, this is a pretty innocuous movie. So, but I suppose people can watch this and say, "Oh, lack of representation." And oh, yeah, I get that. It's 1984.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer.
No. It's a tough question. It's why I like it.
Yeah, it's a good question.
And that's a really good question. Kara, what do you think? Do you think something like Night of the Comet in the future might get canceled?
I think it would definitely have to be altered, or I don't know, maybe something like Blumhouse, where it's maybe like the larger scale independent film companies can get it out there without it really being attacked too much. But it reminds me of the 90s, where hopefully I don't say this wrong, but I think it was the LGBTQ community. They had a problem with Basic Instinct because they saw the serial killer Catherine as misrepresentation, and they had a problem with that film.
Yeah, I remember the controversy with that film. There was a number of controversies with that film, but even the filmmaker, go figure. But yeah, you're right. It is a hard question to say. I think there's enough positives in it to where it would be a hard movie to kind of cancel. There's still elements where I could see people making a case for it, but again, as Ray put it, it is rather innocuous. It's not really making a huge statement about anything, really. I mean, it has a story, and it shows you how people handling the end of the world. But as far as like social statements. Oh, and we lost Ray again, unfortunately. He'll be back. But as far as social statements go, there aren't a whole lot here that it's trying to say. So it's hard to say if it would even fall on people's radar to get canceled. It's just, I think, quirky enough and a bit obscure enough to where people may just pass it by and go, But there's probably there are grounds in there, but I think there's other films that would get canceled before this one.
I mean, people tried going after Gone with the Wind. I'm surprised no one's gone after Pretty Baby.
Yeah, I'm surprised as well. There's a few other films that I'm surprised people haven't gone after. It's really weird, that angle of cancel culture, of what they choose to cancel and what they don't. And Kicking the Seat does make a good point. As long as we have physical media, no one can cancel the classics. So even if you do have people who try to cancel and erase from existence, they would have to go to people's homes and remove discs and such from it.
Don't give people ideas. They'll do it again.
Yeah, that's true. They'll get some Fahrenheit 451 in here, though. Penny says, just in case, I would go making a backup on video cassette like me.
Well, bless the people who pirate and upload illegally. You can always find it if you want to watch it badly enough.
Yeah, fortunately and unfortunately, you can. I'm a big proponent of physical media, as you can tell, for many reasons. But also, just for the sheer fact of the Batman. I know how people feel, and I know how Kicking the Seat feels about the Batman, but the Batman got altered when it got put on streaming. They cut some scenes back. There's talks of, I forgot what movie it was recently, but there's a movie that they talked about cutting out some scenes as well that would be kind of figured offensive today. It was a cartoon or something. I forgot what it was, but it was like one of those where, Fritz the Cat. Well, that just is the whole movie. They show the title and the end credit. Oh, you're muted, Ray. You're muted, Ray. But Fritz the Cat, yeah. It just.
I mean, there's a handful of Bakshi films that people would probably have a problem with nowadays.
Yeah, they're still out there, but no, that's a good question, Petty. Appreciate it quite a bit. Makes you think. But we've got the physical media. We've got people out there who are trying to preserve the original copies of certain films. even as streaming wants to cut it for the new audience, it's fine. But some of these, as long as you put into context, these movies have their place. I mean, we've talked about it on this show before. Ignoring these films or canceling these films makes it tougher to learn from the films and learn what to do and what not to do, and put into context. I have no problems with films putting in ahead of time, streaming services saying, hey, this film is a product of its time. You've got this lack of representation, or this was just, of the day, or even having some famous film critic or someone come up and give maybe a little 5-minute spiel of putting the film in context, but leaving the film as it was supposed to be seen and not cutting out chunks to avoid controversy, because I mean, film's always been controversial. It's always going to be controversial. And when it's not, I think is when it's going to start hurting things if you keep making it safe.
Well, I think they're meant to make you think, whether it's good, bad, if it strikes a chord, whatever. That's the purpose of media.
Yeah, I think a filmmaker would be more disappointed if they got no reaction out of you. The films that I actually kind of find the least entertaining or what that I came out that I had no reaction to, that I just felt like oh, that happened. Okay, that was a movie. Yep. Whereas you come out and go, damn it, they did put this in, or they represented this wrong. They got a reaction out of you and gets you to think. So yeah, you're right, Cara. I think art is meant to do that. And as I think artists will just keep pushing the envelope and doing that regardless, of whether or not the cancel culture is out there or not. Ian Simmons puts out, the only disclaimer they should have on movies is, if you need a disclaimer to watch this movie, you have no business watching this movie.
Yeah. Grow up.
Grow up is right. So thank you, my panel. Thank you for all my live folks. X-Ray, Petty, Kicking the Seat. So glad you guys all, you folks all joined us tonight. This was a fun discussion on Night of the Comet. Yeah, I'm going to show my beta again because I'm very proud of this. I just need to get a beta machine. So thank you so much. And if you go to Facebook, we do have a Spoiler Room Facebook page. I'll put it in the body of the description of this as well. And I will start posting the schedules for each month as I come up with them for what movies are coming up, so you are aware. We'll also put it on the Special Mark Productions Facebook page, which you can join as well out there and get the schedule of what's coming up. And I'll maybe even work out a page somewhere on the specialmarkproductions.com page where you can see what's coming up. So thank you for the suggestion, Petty. And now we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.